Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with If I Could Choose Only One Work by Composer X, it would have to be Work F. Well, this one is a problem, and I'm going to give you all a lesson on discipleship, how a serious prophet and disciple of a really recalcitrant and annoying God deals with said God. As you know, the mission here was to select one typical work that is destined to survive the coming apocalypse in which Cancrezans, the god of classical music, is going to destroy everything except said one work. Well, what do you do when you have a composer like Scarlatti? There's a guy whose output that matters consists entirely of little one-movement sniglets that last anywhere from, 2 to, say, 8 minutes. But there isn't any single one of them that can be said to fully encompass the composer's uniqueness and genius. There are many unique and genius sonatas, but not a single one that sort of gives you the whole kit and caboodle in the way, say, Bach's Goldberg variations or Chopin's Preludes do, that are larger cyclical works that can incorporate a great deal of expressive and compositional technique in a sequence of smaller numbers. And so I said to Cancrezans, I said, look, I know you said we could do albums as well, which is very good, of course. Some of you have even complained that it is a sin against discipleship to even attempt to do albums rather than single works. But I have to tell you, those of you who have said that, I know what the rules are. Trust me, I know what the rules are. That's number one. But number two, a good disciple does not blindly follow. I mean, with all due respect, you guys are far too New Testament. I'm Old Testament. Good disciples argue. They advocate. And that's what I am trying to do. I'm trying to find the cracks in the wall here that will allow us to achieve the ultimate end, which is to get the god Cancrezans to give up the whole silly project, which I think it is. And I told him that. I said to him, God, it's a silly project, what you're doing, and it's not going to make you any friends, and you're just being petulant. And he said to me, well, if that's what you think, prove me wrong. Well, here is one of the best ways to prove him wrong. That's the whole point of this exercise, isn't it? I mean, it's to find these wonderfully characteristic works, but also show how much there is left and how impossible it is to pick. And in some respects, I've done that by choosing, maybe a piece that's a little bit off the beaten path, or that might not be the most popular or the most obvious selection. But on the other hand, we can do it in a different way as well. And this is the different way, because my choice for Scarlatti, that's the composer we're dealing with, remember, is Scarlatti. All of it. The complete sonatas. Here's an album. This is Peter Jan Belder on Brilliant Classics. The other big one, of course, is Scott Ross doing the complete Scarlatti. And there's a wonderful series happening on the Tachett label. Wait a minute. Sorry. It's down here somewhere. I know when I was unpacking that I found some of it. Oh, yes, there it is. Ta-da! Here it is with Christoph Ulrich. There we go. Christoph Ulrich. I haven't even opened this one yet. And so, yeah. And that's on the piano. And I said to Cancrezans, I said, look, you've got 555 sonatas, and you can play them on the harpsichord. You could play them on the piano. You could play them on the Jew's harp. You could play them on the guitar. You could play them on the saxophone. They all sound wonderful, no matter what you do with them. But each one is a little nugget that gives you one facet of this amazing Baroque genius that was Domenico Scarlatti. And I just don't think it's reasonable in this particular case to say pick just one, or even to pick one little album of them. It just doesn't work. If you go for Scarlatti, you gotta go for Scarlatti. And you said that we have to represent every single composer that we can think of. This series can go on for a long time as a result of that. So, as a result, the choice is Scarlatti. And I am explaining thereby to our fusty and fidgety and grumpy god here that the whole project is basically silly because it does not, by its very nature, encompass the variety of genius that is our musical heritage. Yes, some people can be represented by very, very typical works. Others have to be represented by an album of a couple of typical works. And others, you just have to take their body of work because there's no way to break it up into smaller pieces. I said to him, and I also said to him, look, here's the other big problem that we have. It's this. If I just pick one tiny Scarlatti sonata, you know, classical music people, there's going to be this insane bitch fest where everybody says, no, it can't be that. It's got to be this one. It's like the Tower of Babel. It's going to be just this ridiculous argument over which one it ought to be. I said, and do you really want to hear that? I mean, do you? I mean, isn't the whole reason you're annoyed with these people is because of that foolishness? I mean, one of the reasons anyway, one of many reasons. So let's just go for Scarlatti and see what happens. And I think that by doing it this way, we are causing a logical conundrum for the old god that he's going to have a very, very hard time resolving. My question to you, my fellow friends, is not which Scarlatti sonata ought it be, but rather what other composers are there that you can't judge by picking a single cyclical larger work or album, but whose body of work you must consider as a whole. I think, generally speaking, the French clavecinists are also a good crew, Couperin and people like that. And maybe that's what we'll talk about when we get to them. I'm assuming we don't dissuade the god from giving this whole foolish project up in the first place before we get there. But can you think of others? I can, but I'm not going to say who they are. I want you to tell me so that when we get to them, we can make the same argument. And all Cancresans can do is sit there and listen to 555 Scarlatti sonatas. That'll teach them, won't it? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.